Hello, everyone. First of all, I want to thank you for inviting me to talk about a particularly interesting subject that, seen in perspective, never loses its validity. As you have already read in the title of this conference, the protagonist is death. It is an entity that many people don't want to name because they feel that it can be invoked. After all, it arrives and we are not prepared to receive it. That distance with death, that reluctance to name it, that voluntary distance that we wish to have with death is what, for many purposes, has made it little visited by many social sciences. I say this in proportion to other areas and variables that are much more rigorously studied. In this sense, in which death is the protagonist, something must very clear. For us, from a corporeal dimension, it is impossible to think of our death. We don't have the tools to be able to know if, after abandoning our bodily vehicle, we can make a slightest reflection on our death. But death is thought of by those who are close to the person who dies. It is thought not in terms of resigning oneself to the uncertainty of the beyond. On the contrary, current belief systems and ourselves as human beings are afraid to uncertainty of the unknown. This fear stems from various elements that once again are summoned around death. First of all, we think that the transition from life to death can be painful, can be unpleasant, impersonal, and very lonely. Examples of this: an accident, an illness, a simple imagination that we create around the stopping breathing worries us and make us imagine the pain. Second, I want to reiterate this because it's the reason of the creation of the underworld. It is the step into the unknown that anguishes us. Third, we are leaving everything behind: family, friends, the material goods that we have accumulated and for which we have often wasted our lives. And fourth and last, we have such a powerful self preservation instinct that all of the above together make us see death as antagonist. In this order of ideas, I want to highlight precisely the second: anguish to the unknown. When we are essentially religious societies, we begin to unite the gods that are worshipped, pay tribute to, and believe in. We fill the space with the whole of the God to whom we pay tribute. But we cannot think about this terrain in abstract. In the abstract, it is necessary to give it much more complex because the gods that are in religions are complex. Gods of morality, rules, laws, behaviors, and regulations. Therefore, those underworlds must respond to these characteristics. So then, if death is connected with our gods, we do a death ritual. A ritual with which, to God our gods, we tell them that a soul will come to them. But we also tell ourselves that we will never see that person again, serving that as a closing of doors to a loved one and the beginning of the duel. Now that we have arrived at the ritual, we must say that to correctly understand the ritual is, we are going to define it according to what the academic Nogués Pedregal comments. He said, ritual is then the form acquired by a cultural expression that manifests the juxtaposition of those two realities that we have called sacred and profane. An event, act, or action that repeated regularly. It responds to a context, that is, it is performed each time the circumstances that cause it are reproduced. It shows a relationship with the supernatural, particularly elaborated by distinctive acts or operations, trans sacrifice, transubstantiation, metamorphosis. It also has rigidity with the forms. It has certain sequence and is known by all participants. It has a sense of acceptance by the collected and it is coherent with the implementation. They cause a change of nature ontological. It is established by tradition. That is what Nogués Pedregal said. Based on this, we can then proceed to make several reflections on our dynamics with death. For example, for many academics, the model of life based on the three great religions of the books, Catholicism, Islam, and Judaism, can be considered as the norms to have a good life after death. The issue, it could be said, has been inherited by our Egyptian ancestors. Then I read a fragment of the Book of the Dead. O white strider who came forth from Heliopolis, I have not done wrong. O fire embracer who came forth from Keraha, I have not robbed. O noisy who came forth from Hermopolis, I have not stolen. O swallower of shades who came forth from Kernet, I have not slain people. O burning one who came forth backwards, I have not told lies. O he who the cavern who came forth from the west, I have not fornicated with the fornicator. O doubly evil one who came forth from the Buriside, I have not had intercourse with a married woman. O empty serpent who came forth from the place of execution, I have not had intercourse with a married woman. O youth who came forth from the double scepter gnome, I have not been neglectful with of truthful words. O he who prospers the common people who came forth of Asyut, I have not have cursed a god. It is undeniable that this book that was initially written around 5000 before Christ in the pyramids and then about 3000 before Christ, there is not only a similarity with the laws of God of the Christianity, but also an idea of a code of conduct to have a good underworld on pain of punishment, that it is also very far from being a modern idea. As we can see here, it is something that has been with religions since they existed. These lead us to the notions of right and wrong, to certain things proper to morality. That is where the concept of sin and punishment appears, issues that we can also find, for example, in stories like Epic of Gilgamesh, with the first recorded history of the universal flood. But I don't want to be misunderstood. I'm not saying that the modern religions has copied from ancient religions. I'm saying that it is normal that different religions around the world have similar visions regarding common events, such as death, life, nature, and even the elements and natural forces. This history can be found in mythological stories such as Hindu and Celtic as well. In addition to these coincidences between visions of seeing good, bad, and morality among religions, we must take into account that the visions of purity, the codes of good conduct, also has many coincidences along with what is named. Before the Book of the Dead, we have For example, the original sin, whose first solid mention and mass transfer was that of Pandora's box in Greece. This allows us to see, for example, that some ritual progressions, such as flowers during the ceremonial process, cleaning the corpse as is done in Iceland so meticulously, having days of contemplations, wearing black clothes, and so on, are direct connections with divinities. Religions in Latin America still keep ways of proceeding that had been inherited and transferred from the, for example, ancient Egyptians, and once we meet again as humanity on it. We come to a conclusion after all. We don't have to wait for death so that, as a species, we realize that we are brothers in many forms of faith. What you have just heard has been the result of 5 years of fieldwork, more than 46 interviews, close to 16 conferences around the world, and the participation of more than 100 people who opened their doors and bet on an investigation into the death and funeral rituals. It was worth it. Thank you very much.